Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Close Enough. Regular Show was sort of an important show to me. I felt like it sort of mirrored what was going on in my own life, in like sort of a dead-end job, chilling, doing silly things with my friends. I'm not really sure where you're going, all those things. And then it ended about 2 months, I think, before my daughter was born, and it felt like a real bookend to that period of my life. When I heard about Close Enough, and it eventually came out, I was surprised because it was about a husband and wife and their daughter. And as much as I felt like regular shows sort of mirrored my own life before that, this feels like almost sort of a continuation of that. And this very much feels like the follow-up to regular show from J.G. Quintel, except instead of taking place in a park, it takes place with a husband and wife, Josh and Emily, and their daughter Candace, as they live with a divorced couple who have a weird relationship, Alex and Bridget. First off, I'll say, this is a first season. It very much feels that way. But I can already get a sense that I will want to watch more seasons of this. I went through it very quickly. It was just as addictive as regular show was in its heyday. I dove in and just like any chance I could to watch an episode, I did. It's very watchable. It's very kind of bingeable. It's, to me, it's a show that I'm definitely going to stick with. And it's one that I laughed a lot about. I related to a certain regard. It felt to me every bit of as watchable and as fun as regular show was. But it's not, I'd say, a fully formed show. And you don't really get a sense of some basic things that would make sense for a couple at this stage of their lives that they didn't really establish first. It took them a while to get there. I could see the show having greater potential in future seasons if it's given that opportunity. We'll see. I don't know how well it did. Regular show kind of had this format where they're doing something, like I always say, they're supposed to set up the chairs and then there's a video game monster. And it totally, makes sense, but it also like kind of relates to that stage in your life where you're supposed to set up the chairs. And it's like your whole day and that's your job, basically. In this, it does a similar thing where it takes on a simple thing between like teaching your daughter to skateboard because you really love skateboarding, trying to get away for the weekend, wanting to look at open houses but realizing you can't afford one, being envious of other parents or the cool moms or something like that. And then it like goes into, crazy shenanigans from there. And that I'm fine with. Obviously, I know, what J.G. Quintel gives you from these shows, and I expect that. But it seemed like Close Enough was far more interested in doing that, specifically at the beginning, than actually introducing these characters. When you have Josh and Emily are pretty much know who they are at this point, or I'd hope they do. But from what you are to understand later, they pretty much know who they are and where they are in life. It worked fine in regular show because Mordecai and Rigby did not know who they were. They're sort of figuring that out as the show went along. So it kind of works within his own writing. This didn't. It's like I didn't really understand Josh's deal. They started him off as more like in the first episode, in the Quilty Pleasure episode, he like buys a zoot suit and he gets like a parrot and all this stuff when he's supposed to be getting stuff for his daughter's like quilt thing. And that also annoys me. I don't like the kind of like goofy dad thing. And he's not serious and he's not really doing anything sort of thing because I feel like one that's like done to death. And I was a little disappointed really that I was like, oh, this is the character that J.G. Quintel plays. Not that I really feel like everything needs to be like how I am or something, but I was just disappointed. It's kind of a boring trope. I don't think dads of this generation are really like that, and I did feel actually sort of disappointed. It's like one thing to get like 2 extra churros, it's another to like literally not do what you were there to get and like spend like I'm assuming almost $1,000 or something based on those purchases, but this isn't The Price is Right. But if anyone would like to tell me how much he spent, then comment below, I guess. I didn't like that, but as it went on, you sort of understand him. You get that he almost had a video game. It didn't work out. He, wanted to make more video games, and now he's working, at IT installation. Can't relate to that, I guess. And you get a sense of like he doesn't feel like he's doing enough for his family while also like working his ass off in certain regard, and feels like this is the best he can do, and maybe that's honestly not maybe good enough and stuff. And I actually at the beginning I really didn't like their portrayal of that character of Josh. Towards the end of it, when he's like skipping rocks and stuff in the one episode, he like just doesn't have anything to do because he's on call and he feels like a waste even though he's on call and stuff. I did feel like that was a real arc, and I think like they set him up at the end of that season in a much better way than at the beginning, because I don't need another Homer Simpson. I liked Homer Simpson, but I don't think Josh needs to be Homer Simpson. Whereas also with Emily, I don't know what her job is until the infamous, I guess, snail in it episode, which is almost, it's like the second to last thing, is almost like pivotal because you understand like what her job was. You didn't really know what her job was at all in the previous episodes, and she works for this massive food corporation, as well as like you understand her and Bridget have a band, but you don't know until much later that it's like a parody band, and I guess it's like Oates and Garfunkel sort of, but not really. You don't even really understand the kind of songs they would write, and I wish they'd kind of like gotten more into that, because those are interesting character things, and I almost feel like how J.G. Quintel naturally is sort of went against like kind of introducing a new kind of a sitcom, because I would have liked an episode that more introduces me to everybody, and it like slowly started to come together, and I felt like I really knew everybody by the end, and like knew everyone from Jason Mantzoukas' character of Alex. I thought was really great, and it almost felt like Josh was more of almost like less of a Mordecai and more of a Rigby, and towards the end he became more of a Mordecai is kind of how I thought of it. And I do like what it's trying to say about being in your 30s, particularly now, and like trying to do the best for your kid, and trying to, you know, raise your kid right, and do the right financial decisions, and realizing you can't do them. Like the house one I thought was interesting because she just like wanted to be stuck in that. It's almost like the ideal that you grew up with. Like I thought that episode actually had a lot of meaning in it, because it's like the idea that you'd be stuck in this open house thing as like a sitcom is almost like you're stuck in the memories of TV that you grew up on, that you would have a family, you live in this big house, and that she's trapped in. That shows that like those memories are trapped to a time that is like this like weird dimension that has no like real bearings in reality at this point. And the fact that she's like sort of trapped in that reality and has to break out of that with her husband has extra meaning. That is like they can't be in there, they can't do that, they don't have the money, they don't have the opportunities to do that, and these other people who are just kind of living in this complete fantasy land that's like so absolutely unattainable, which I thought was actually like actually really meaningful plot line, to be honest. It did feel like this show was sort of finding itself, but I do think it's in a good place, and I really like that about it. I also like the voice cast from J.G. Quintel to Gabrielle Walsh, who plays Emily. Jason Mantzoukas is a great voice actor. I know he was in the regular show movie, and I think he was in a few regular show episodes. I might be getting that wrong. As well as Kimiko Glenn was really great as well. As well as it had a great guest stars from everyone from Weird Al to David Hasselhoff to Rachel Dratch to Sherry O'Terry to Noel Fielding to Dave Foley. And I noticed like even some regular show people like Owen Dennis, who now does Infinity Train, did some storyboard stuff on Close Enough, as well as actually one episode, 100% No Stress Day, has a writing credit from Bill Oakley, who created Mission Hill and wrote for The Simpsons. So it actually has a really good team behind it, and to be honest, for a show that's sort of finding itself, I can't think of a show that was better sort of written and funnier, like from the, I forget which one it was actually, but does the Turn Down for What parody with them like having a night alone from their kid. To be honest, that is 100% accurate what that feels like. You're like, oh my god, I'm gonna do so many things, and they're like the most boring crap you could. I'm sure most of you are like, that's what you would do with your night. I don't get it. Some of it I think is very much tied to kind of the millennial thing, like the Jim Carrey episode, or the Canine Guy, sorry. The Canine Guy, clever guys episode in particular. I think and I recently watched Cable Guy, still don't like it, but beside the point, I get like how big Jim Carrey was, particularly when my kind of generation was younger, and how much he represented to us, so I definitely get that. But that was actually kind of one of the more pivotal episodes as well. Probably my favorite two are like Snailing It and Canine Guy, and I think First Date also, because I kind of like the horror concepts that J.G. Quintel does. I think that's the only, I guess Snailing It is also sort of body horror, but the cool hat, but the idea of them like kind of trapped in this haunted house, and that got like really dark, like they're gonna die and all this stuff. I'm not gonna say it's maybe like better than regular show or the exact like perfect follow-up. I do think the praise is maybe a little too high, but I more in nitpicky fashion. I think it is actually a really good show, and I would recommend it to people my age, even if they didn't watch regular show obsessively like I did. I think mainly what the show needs to do at this point, and the big problem with it, is it needs to evolve these characters and not do just like general boring ass cliches. Like I think Close Enough could be so much more than that, and it has the opportunity to kind of let go of that, to do those cliches. I think it kind of knows, like, and maybe I don't know his life, I'm assuming he has a kid or something just by how this is written. I don't know. I've never met him. They're really able to tap into something. Everything from like feeling like, you're not doing enough, but you're working as much as you humanly possibly can, from like you feel like you have dreams that you used to want to fulfill but can't, that you're trying to do everything for your kid, that there's not enough hours in the day. Like the one with the hat, snailing it, appealed to me a lot, because it's like, as well, because like her having that hat that she could go really fast, I would absolutely take that hat and do a million errands with it and stuff like that. Like that felt very real to me. So I think these episodes worked better when they had plot lines that I was like, yeah, I would definitely fall into that, even though it was fantastical. Because I think one of the best things that J.G. Quintel can do is take the ordinary kind of regular sort of life and make it into the fantastical, but make it 100% relatable. And he can kind of dip into the surreal in the way that I really love about him, where he can really dip into that, but also like give it a sincere point. And I feel like when this show had a point and it understood itself, it was like really great. It just took a few episodes to get there, and I think, with a great cast and everything, I think the show has so much potential, and I'm actually very much excited for season 2. It wasn't like the roughest start. There's been way rougher season 1s from a lot of other shows. It's actually a fairly strong season 1, but you can tell they're definitely finding themselves. And when they got there and the show really was starting to find itself and find its voice, I felt like that made this a real special animated show to behold, and probably one of the better animated sitcoms I've seen that like you can sit down with, relax with, and also relate to on a real central level, or maybe just I can relate to on a real like specific level, that kind of shows you both like the possibilities of animation, but also the possibilities and the relatability of a sitcom in general. And I think like that's a very hard thing for a lot of shows to do, but close enough, especially towards the end of this season 1, nails that absolutely perfectly. And I can definitely say that as like a married dude, I was surprised how perfectly it nailed it too. So if you have seen Close Enough and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.